Bond. James Bond.
He's the world's most famous spy, and for 50 years, from Sean Connery to Daniel Craig, 007 has always had his way with the girl and taken care of the bad guy.
I'm forever going to be known as James Bond, but that's no bad thing. It's not a bad label to have.
What you may not know is that every actor, gadget, script, and director for Bond has been chosen by this family.
We are, well, control freaks.
I'm Anderson Cooper. Turning 50 is a major milestone in anyone's life, but when the world's most famous secret agent turns 50, we think that's as good a reason as any to raise a glass, provided, of course, it's a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. James Bond is celebrating his 50th anniversary on screen with a new film due out next month. Bond is the longest-running movie franchise in history and one of the most profitable, earning nearly $5 billion in ticket sales worldwide. What's the secret to 007's longevity? We found that while on screen, Bond has consistently changed with the times, behind the scenes, one family of producers has been responsible for his success from the very beginning. Back in 1962, a small-time producer named Albert Cubby Broccoli made the first Bond film and went on to produce 15 more. Before he died, he turned over control to his daughter and stepson, producers who still own half the franchise and oversee every aspect of every film, including the latest one, Skyfall.
Action!
Cubby Broccoli's daughter, Barbara Broccoli, and his stepson, Michael Wilson, recently wrapped production on Skyfall, the 23rd Bond film in the franchise they inherited. Before your dad stepped down, did he give you any advice?
Well, I guess the main thing was he said, don't let other people screw it up.
The fact that you've kept this in the family, do you think that's critical to the success of this?
I think so.
We are, well, control freaks, you know, and we're excited. We're still excited by it. I mean, every morning, you know, you get up and you think, well, I get to go on a Bond set. And it's thrilling.
Skyfall stars Daniel Craig in his third outing as 007. He's the sixth actor to play Bond in its 50-year history. Why do you think it's lasted for 50 years?
Sort of giving value for money to a cinema-going public has been the credo of the Broccoli family.
Cubby Broccoli talked about putting all the money on the screen.
Yeah. And they still give a large bang for your buck. I mean, the fact that they haven't been bought out by a studio over the years is incredible. And I think if it had been sold in the past, if a studio had taken it, it would have died. They love making these movies, and that shows when you're making the film.
The film's opening over-the-top action sequence, a Broccoli family trademark, was shot in Turkey, with Daniel Craig performing many of his own stunts.
I get a huge thrill out of it, a schoolboy thrill, you know, that is about being the action hero on top of a train, which is so far removed from who I am, but I'm getting to sort of live out a few fantasies.
So, Mr. Bond.
Fantasy has always been at the heart of James Bond's appeal. When Ian Fleming, a former British naval intelligence officer, published the first Bond novel, Casino Royale, in 1953, it offered readers a much-needed escape from the austerity of post-war Britain. Cubby Broccoli's dreams of bringing Bond to the screen were realized when he met another producer, Harry Saltzman, who'd obtained the screen rights to Fleming's early Bond books for a mere $50,000. For their first film, 1962's Dr. No, Broccoli and Saltzman picked Sean Connery, then an unknown Scottish actor who introduced himself to audiences with 3 words that are now movie history.
Mr. Bond. James Bond.
He sort of exploded on the screen in Technicolor with Jamaican locations and
hot women.
Hot women and bikinis.
Looking for shells?
No, I'm just looking.
It's a pretty exciting world that Bond inhabits.
But it's a world Sean Connery almost wasn't part of. Hard to believe, but in the beginning, Broccoli told us Ian Fleming didn't think he was right for the role. What do you think his concern was about Connery?
Well, he didn't fit the sort of typical British hero, but Cubby and Harry saw him as a rough diamond. They just felt this electricity.
Where were you measured for this, bud?
To help him look the part, the film's director took Connery to a Savile Row tailor to get him fitted for a suit.
He said to Sean Wright, now, It fits like a glove, and I want you to go home and I want you to sleep in it, and I want it to become your skin.
He made Sean Connery sleep in his Salvador suit.
Sleep in his suit.
Over the course of 6 films, Connery set the bar for the 5 actors who followed. George Lazenby for 1 film, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and now Daniel Craig. Do you have a favorite Bond?
It's like asking, who's your favorite child or your favorite sibling. You have to understand, like, we grew up with all of them.
I heard that you actually believed Bond was real when you were a child.
I did, because that was all everybody ever talked about in our house. So it was like some, exotic, distant uncle who was going to appear at any time.
Do you wish he was real?
Well, he is real to me in a way, because he's, so much of my life is, dedicated to him. But I'm not sure he'd be that much fun in real life. I think, maybe to spend a weekend with him, but I don't think you want to live with him permanently.
He's not a long-term relationship kind of guy.
He's definitely not a long-term relationship.
Behave yourself, Mr. Bond.
James.
Bond may not be dependable, but his films certainly are. And that's one reason for their success. The Broccoli family formula. A big-budget, high-octane mix of ruthless gunplay, that racy girl play, and often risque wordplay.
Who are you?
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
It's not perfected yet.
Few Bond films would be complete without a visit with Q,
Here we have a Geiger counter.
the eccentric mastermind behind 007's high-tech and often outlandish gadgets,
These fire heat-seeking air-to-air missiles.
which over the years got him out of many sticky situations. Turns out some of Q's gadgets are stored with other Bond movie memorabilia
Hello.
at this nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of London. It's like something out of Citizen Kane. Meg Simmons oversees the collection of half a century's worth of artifacts. There was this box of crystals from Die Another Day.
No, leave it in, please.
One of those was in Halle Berry's belly button. We're not sure which one. Please put on the gloves.
She handles the most iconic Bond props like museum pieces. The oldest one is from Dr. No.
Oddly enough, a champagne bottle survived.
We'll have dinner at once.
And that's from the scene when Dr. No has asked Bond and Honey to his dinner table.
Take her away.
Dr. No's henchmen start manhandling Honey.
No.
And Bond comes to her aid, and the only weapon at hand is the champagne bottle on the dining room table. Dr. No says, please don't. It's a Dom Perignon 1955. And Bond, being Bond, says,
I prefer the 53 myself.
that is a real bottle.
It is, really?
Yes. There you go.
That's the booby-trap briefcase Sean Connery used in From Russia with Love in 1963. We saw Jaws' deadly dentures.
These are Jaws' teeth.
The golden gun from The Man with the Golden Gun. And perhaps the most famous piece of Bond memorabilia, the deadly hat worn by the henchman Oddjob in 1964's Goldfinger.
This was one of a few that they used.
Cool.
Yeah. This one has, you can see the blades, and it's weighted.
So there is
And that
actually
was-
a metal rim to this.
Yeah, and it's used in the final scene when it gets stuck in the bars. And then when he goes to retrieve it, Bond manages to electrocute him.
How
So
much
was
is
it-
something like this worth?
It's about 62,000 pounds.
So it's about a $100,000 hat.
That's right, yeah.
So I shouldn't throw it across the room.
No, please don't.
Not far away, parked on Goldfinger Avenue at Pinewood Studios, where nearly all of the 007 films have been made, we found James Bond's Aston Martin. On screen, it was outfitted with machine guns, tire-slashing hubcaps, and an ejector seat for those unwanted passengers. A secret agent's dream, but for the Broccoli's, it's also a business opportunity. Perhaps the most successful product placement in film. Sean Connery started driving this model Aston Martin in 1964. Since then, it's shown up in 5 other Bond films. There's no doubt 007 has done a lot for Aston Martin's brand, and these days there are plenty of other companies eager to get their products into his hands.
BMW.
After the Z3 Roadster appeared in 1995's GoldenEye, sales of the car skyrocketed. Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson told us companies don't pay to be placed in a Bond film, but agree to spend millions marketing the movies. Heineken, 007's beer of choice in Skyfall, is spending $75 million on a worldwide ad campaign. Getting sponsors on board with Bond has been easy, but convincing Daniel Craig to take on the role of 007 wasn't. When he was offered the part,
I said no. I said, thanks very much. You need to go away and find the right person. It was going to be a life-changing thing if I said yes.
Life-changing, how so?
It was going to change everything, to change how I was perceived in the world. And I suppose I was incredibly nervous about that.
It was part of the concern that, though you were well known before, this is a global thing.
Yeah, and also because everybody says, oh, well, you're going to get typecast, and that's obviously true. I'm now forever going to be known as James Bond, but that's no bad thing. It's not a bad label to have.
Craig finally accepted the role after nearly 2 years.
Danielle, here, please.
But when he was introduced as the newest 007, some fans complained he was too short and too blonde to be Bond. But once filming began on Casino Royale, Barbara Broccoli was convinced the critics would be proven wrong.
He was just electrifying. We knew what we had.
Are you talking about the scene where he gets out of the water in a bathing suit?
Well, yeah. How did you know that was what I was thinking about?
Bathing suit aside, Craig plays Bond like Fleming wrote him. Dark, flawed, very human. In a scene taken right from the pages of Casino Royale, Bond is tied down to a chair and brutally beaten. When you go back to the Ian Fleming books, he's basically a guy who gets tortured a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to you. Well, it seems a lot.
Yeah, he is tortured. He gets tortured and is tortured. Fleming has a love-hate relationship with him and wants to kill him off all the time. But that's kind of part of the whole deal.
But there's a danger to your Bond that Roger Moore didn't have.
Look, if I could play it like Roger Moore, I would. I'd be a lot easier on my limbs.
But no matter who's playing him, what man doesn't secretly, or not so secretly,
I'll give you this gun.
Want to be James Bond?
This is the Walther PPK.
That's Bond's signature gun.
Both eyes open.
Okay. And at this firing range, Joss Scatto taught Daniel Craig and Pierce Brosnan how to shoot like James Bond.
You don't hold it like a bunch of flowers.
He tried to show me.
With your top part of your body, hip upwards, that's the boy. This arm's going to be straight. That's the stance you're going to be doing. And go! Bit more aggressive on this one. Very nice.
I don't feel like James Bond yet.
You will do, in about 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's all it takes, 15 minutes?
No.
That is the part of the fantasy, I think. The appeal of this character is that people want to be, guys want to be him.
But I want to see sides to him. I want to see a fallibility about the character because, he's an assassin. He kills people.
Daniel Craig has breathed new life into the series. His 2 films to date have earned record highs for the franchise. As for his newest adventure, Skyfall, known in production as Bond 23, it's not even out yet, and there's already talk of Bond 24. But Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, the guardians of the franchise, aren't giving up any of its secrets. Where does Bond go from here? He's sort of done it all.
That statement could have been made 20 years ago and been just as valid as it is today.
How much longer do you think you can keep Bond going?
As long as audiences want to come see the movies, we'll make them.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to see what it's like to be Bond for a day.